Good morning. Does this get me a slide? Let's see. All right, Kol Isha, a woman's voice. And wouldn't you think the directive Kol Isha in the Jewish tradition means women lift up your voices proudly? No. Kol Isha means a woman should speak quietly, modestly, never let her voice raise above a whisper. At times of prayer, a woman's voice should not be heard. She's not to pray above a murmur. She's not to speak in public or be a leader in public in any way. This isn't really Jewish law. It's really Jewish custom and tradition, as it's been passed down by the Orthodox rabbis for the last 1,000 years. Kol Isha. Slowly, during the 20th century, women began to raise their voices in a very public way. I was ordained as a rabbi 20 years ago, and there were rabbis at least 10 years before me. We began wearing colorful talitot. This is a talis, a prayer shawl. We began leading services. And our sisters in Israel, encouraged by American rabbis, began to do the same. They gathered at the Western Wall, the Wailing Wall, the wall that is the central image for all Judaism. They gathered at that wall. On the women's section, there is what is called a mechitza, or a dividing line between the men and the women. But they gathered in the women's section, which at that time was about 50-50. It's now probably 80-20, the space that's allotted. And led by a woman named Anat Hoffman, they began to read Torah aloud and, oh my God, prayer. There have been a number of scuffles over the years, and they've pushed these women into what is now called Robinson's Arch, a much smaller location. But women were able to pray at the wall. This October 16th, leading a group of Hadassah women. Now, come on, my mother was the Hadassah lady. It's hardly an activist group. Sorry, Hadassah, but really. You know, come on. You've all had mothers who do this. Leading a group of women in prayer at the wall, Anat sang the Shema, which is up on those banners, aloud, declaring God's unity, just as part of a prayer service on the women's side, and wearing a traditional talit. She was arrested, put in chains, dragged across the plaza, strip searched when she got to the police station, and spent the night in jail as women around the world woke up to this call. Kol Isha, it's time we raised our voices. A month later, because this was done in honor of Rosh Chodesh, which is the traditional woman's way of honoring a time of study and a time of the light of the moon, 6 more women were arrested. They weren't kept overnight. It's going to keep up. Some of the women took their colorful little shawl and wrapped it around like it's a scarf, right? They got away with it. But those who stood proudly with a talit went to jail for a very short time, just to make the point. So we see Kol Isha is not so simple. And I ask myself the question, do we only raise our voices and live out loud a social protest? How do we live out loud throughout our lives, and what prevents it and what stops us from living out loud? Here we go. There are 2 basic motivating forces, John Lennon says, fear and love. When we are afraid, we pull back from life. When we are in love, We open to all that life has to offer with passion, excitement, and acceptance. What is it that keeps us from offering all that life has to offer with passion, excitement, and acceptance? Well, I interviewed a group of women 30 to 50 years old that I meet with every Tuesday. We call them the Tuesday Mamas. And I asked, do you live out loud? And what prevents you from doing so? And they were very clear. Life is a series of balances, and I have to take care of my children and my husband and my job. And it's not so easy just to go protest at the wall wearing a tallit. But in order to live out loud, it doesn't need to be loudly. And to live out loud, we need to find the gifts that we have. Bring those gifts to the surface and make them an integral part of our lives. What are our own particular gifts? How do we identify them? How do we know what it is that we have to give? We find those gifts with the music that we make, with the art that we make, with our relationships, with our writing, with everything that we do to give. And as we do so, we realize that sometimes, and let's see if this will go backwards, I guess it will not, sometimes we go from LOL, living out loud, to SOS, softly, of service. And we discover that we use our voices in ways to heal, to share, to live our gifts so that we are able to live out loud and balance our lives. What is it that we are really to do with our voices? What are we called upon to do as we share our gifts? What are we given a human voice for so that we can live out loud? The Jewish tradition is very clear. Help me to the next slide. Kol haneshama tehalel hallelujah. The voice of every living being shall praise your name. We're given these voices to heal, to help, to gift, and to say thank you. In just this one moment that I have left, I'd like you to shout out the things you are thankful for in your life. Go, everybody across the room. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for giving me a voice, for giving me a synagogue, for giving me these banners that say the Shema, for giving me this day with all of you, for giving me my breath and my life. I'm closing with a dedication to my friend, Rabbi Cheryl Lewart, who was a woman who lived out loud and died yesterday. She lived her voice. She brought her blessings and prayers. Kol hanshama tehalel yah. We offer praise for the life breath and our ability to live it out loud softly. Thank you.